Good morning, everyone. My name is Amy Wolf. I'm the programming coordinator for the Osterville Village Library. Thank you for coming out on this absolutely stunning fall Friday. It is definitely feeling a little bit more like fall. And to our friends joining us on Zoom, thank you so much for being here as well. Today, we are honored to have with us Osterville's favorite historian and very generous friend to the library, Paul Chesbro. Paul has been working with the OVL, sharing his village knowledge that will benefit generations to come, and we are eternally grateful. Without further ado, Paul Chesbro.
I think, Amy, before we run this, I think to read a little bit, I'm going to stand. When it comes to the pictures, I'll sit. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning. Welcome and thank you, Osterville Library, for this opportunity to once again speak on Old Osterville. It seems Cindy Cotton wants to record as much as she can from my source of village history for future years to come, as I'm getting older. I have been researching the history of the village since 1959. Remember, I had a job to attend to, plus my property to keep up, and my mother in later years, as she progressed in age and into her 90s. The research will continue, and I trust someone will take over for me in the years to come. From time to time, some things show up online about Osterville. There are two people I know of who compete over Osterville items. Someone buys something at a yard sale, jacks the price up, and makes it available to the general public online. Then perhaps in clearing out an addict of old grandparents who had connections with Osterville years ago, someone might come across something of interest pertaining to the village. So items do show up. Osterville had three names before it became Osterville. I want you to listen carefully. At the close of World War XII, it was first known as Cottachesset. Now that means the old Indian name means land by the South Sea. Then it became known as Lovell's neighborhood because so many by that name lived in this area. Then Oyster Island, due to the oysters here, then Osterville. I never found the name Oysterville in the old land deeds. I can see why people would use the name Oysterville due to the oysters here, but I never found it used in land transactions years ago. In volume 3 has the best information on that particular subject. Another question people ask me from time to time is, we have an older home or have purchased one. Could you tell me something about it? Well, not really. I always suggest they have someone do a title research at the courthouse. It will cost to have someone do this. This usually ends the interest because of the cost to them. The Historical Society has very little of this information available. The program will vary somewhat. Some of the old homes will be featured, plus pictures of the owner at one time, not necessarily the original owner of the home. Then there will be random pictures which have shown up since my last publication. Within the last year, many old pictures of the Crosby boatyard have come to light. I can't do justice to them because of time. A later date for that is
February.
in the works.
February.
Just a minute, I'm getting old. This coming Monday, November 11th, we celebrate Armistice Day, better known today as Veterans Day. On that November 11th, 106 years ago, the guns on the Western Front fell silent. I will now start the program with a poem. I'm sure many of you have read this. Then we will go into the slide program. In Flanders fields, the poppies blow. Between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks, still bravely singing, fly. Scarce heard amid the guns below, we are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. Where are my papers here? Show you I'm getting old. Take up your quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to lift it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies blow in Flanders fields. John McRae. Maybe an unusual way to open up a program such as this. All right. Hey, you all set? Victory, the reason I read all that, victory celebration. Osterville truly has done its share of celebrating the victory of the Great War. This past week, the church bells were rung on Monday, November 11th, from 7 a.m. in the morning until 7 at night, stopping only long enough for the boys and girls who helped so steadily at the bells ropes to take part in the parade, which started at 2 p.m. from Post Office Square. It was led by school children dressed in national colors of the Allies. Okay. That's the Baptist church in the background. It's being all renovated. And this is the start of the Victory Parade. November 11th, 106 years ago here in Osterville. Now, I don't know who that lady is. I think I do. But I think that's who that person is. It says here, members of the Red Cross with banners and 6 young ladies in patriotic attire bore our service flag, and that service flag, I think, is down here at Veterans Hall with its 42 stars, and that 42 stars means the number of people, men and women from Osterville, who participated in World War I. There was a long line of gaily decorated autos. You can notice the wooden sidewalk. My mother was a teenager at that time, and she was from Osterville, and she recalled that event many times as she participated in it. Now, this picture was taken right in front of where 5 bays bistro is. And that shows the decorated cars. You can see that chimney is the house and garden, and central garage used to be there. And that building just left of the Baptist church. But those are the automobiles lined up there, getting ready for the parade on Armistice Day 106 years ago here in Osterville. Now, this here is Tansy Kalis. Her folks used to run the country store. This is now the location of the flagpole. That's Main Street. And this road coming down this way would be Parker Road. This picture is taken 1925, 1926. Now, one of those gadgets there used to be, when I was a child, at the corner of West Bay Road and Parker Road, where the Historical Society is. I don't remember that one, but I do remember the other one. Now, this is the dedication of the boulder. You can see the cars lined up there. Now, it's now where the flagpole is. And that's the country store right there in the background. And this celebration took part in 1929 when that boulder was dedicated. Now we're going to go into some of the old homes of Osterville and perhaps the owners of them. This home here is the home of now the present house and garden. And at yes, the house and garden home, the man that owned it at that time, this picture is taken about 1860, 1870. His name was Lovell. That's a picture of him. He was the owner of that home where that previous picture was shown. He was a prominent sea captain here in the village of Osterville. This home here now is the location of Land Vest. I had to go uptown yesterday to find out what the name of who was the owner of it. It's just to the right of Five Bays Bistro. This home used to sit. And when I was a youngster, it was taken off the foundation, set over here where the post office is on pilings or on blocks. And eventually it was moved to Bay Street, and is the first house today on the right-hand side on Bay Street. And one of the early owners of it was Joseph Roberts. And a tragedy happened to the original house that was on that house lawn. In 1841, it burnt down, and one of his children was burnt in the house. But that's the man who lived in that house prior to the previous owner. And the house now stands on Bay Street. This is the old Scudder home. Now that used to be where McCartan Realty, or there was a bicycle, when this house was torn down, there used to be a bicycle shop there. It's gone out. I don't know where it's moved to. But that home was on that particular location. And Freeman Scudder was the owner of that home, and he was the one that started what is known today as Scudder Taylor Oil Company. They're based in Hyannis now, and they were in the coal business when here in Osterville. So he was the one that started that. with coal years ago. This is his wife. And they had 2 children. Now, this home here, if you head west on Main Street, there's a little store there called Joan Peters. I don't know exactly what she sells, but it's on the left-hand side, right past where the country store used to be. And it belonged to the 2 front windows now have got big display windows in them. But that's where the house passed Joan Peters. And the captain of that house at the time that picture was taken was Captain West. And he was one of the noted sea captains here in Osterville. And there's a picture of one of his boats is done by William Pierce Stubbs. They're a very prominent artist from Maine. It's on the on the back of volume number 2. Captain West. Now, if you head further west on Main Street, you come to a house that says Germani Insurance. I know the Germani family. This house looks like if a good wind could knock it down. At that particular time, this picture was taken. It was the home of John Wesley Lewis and his wife. Now, if some of you know Walter Lewis here in the village, this would be his great-grandfather. And that they were the last ones to live in that particular house. And then it was torn down. My mother used to recall the house. Now we go further west on Main Street to the Adams House. This is now the location of the Osterville Fire Department. And right to the right of that would be Fire Station Road. So when you voted the other day, years ago, instead of the fire station, that house used to be where the fire station is now. Now, the house that I just showed is the house to the right. This house here is the Henry Foster Lewis home. It was built about 1900. It's now the location of the fire department parking lot. When young ladies came here to teach school, this is where many of them stayed. It was a huge house built for that time. However, in 1921, it burned to the ground with loss of lots of old Osterville history, which is a shame. Gone. That was the owner of the home, Henry Foster Lewis. And that was his wife. Their house went up in smoke in 1921. We now move just a little further on Main Street to the James Leonard home. James Milton Leonard. It is now the location of Casalt Roofing. And that's Mr. Leonard and his family out front. Mr. Leonard, James Milton Leonard, is the one that started today Leonard's Insurance Company. They're down here. Now they got an office down here by Fancy's. That's the one that started it, and that was his home. This was his wife. All right. This is Stephen West. He was in the War of 1812. His house was directly across from Midway Garage. The house is still standing, and you'll see a picture of it in a moment. Stephen West had a huge family. That's his wife. That's Mrs. West. Now, there's a picture of the home. It was situated, it still is, right across from Midway Garage. And if you look there to the right, I remember it very well because my mother's aunt lived there. This thing here was the well. I remember the well very well. It was deep. It was all dug by hand, I suppose, years ago. And it had that little thing over it, little roof over it. And they had a crank in there. The pail would go down, pick up nice, fresh, clean water. And then Mr. Hallett, who was the grandson of all this crowd, had it taken down. Okay, where am I here? Wait a minute. All right, here we go. Now, this is the old Hallett house. If you were to go up Tower Hill Road and turn left into where the condominiums are, this house was situated in that area, and it looked down into the village of Osterville, maybe between the church and the Sylvia building. Yep, that house also was destroyed by fire in 1901. That's Mr. Hallett, Benjamin Hallett, and he was a soldier in the Revolutionary War for 3 years. One of the few men, because Osterville didn't have a whole lot of people back in those days, one of the few men from Osterville who served in the Revolutionary War. Now, that's his wife. These were old oil paintings that were done, I think, in 1815. Now, now we're heading east. If you like to eat at Wimpy's, this is the old Bolt House. And this is the location of where Wimpy's is nowadays. Years ago, when I was young, this house was taken off the foundation, sat on building blocks, halfway up in that parking lot where the A&P, now the medical center is. Then when the land was sold, the house was torn down. But that's the old Bolt House, now the location of Wimpy's. This is Mr. Lovell. Now, if you go east on Main Street, past Fancy's to where that fella that bought his home is now owned by Wayfair Furniture. It's at the corner of Main Street and East Bay Road. Now, not the house on the right that's been all worked on, but the house on the left-hand side of East Bay Road. Okay, that's the old George Lovell. He served in the War of 1812. He was captured by British on the high seas and imprisoned in England during the duration of the war. That's the home. It's now Wayfair. This is East Bay Road right here. The little World War II triangle would be to the left there. Wasn't there then, but that's the old George Lovell home at the corner of East Bay Road and Main Street. I just was able to get that photograph just recently. Somebody found it online. Now we're further east on Main Street. This is the Serenus Lovell home. corner of Main Street and Swift Avenue. He was a prominent sea captain. So if you go along Main Street, turn left on Swift Avenue, that house is still standing there. That's the Serenus Lovell home. And that's him with one of his daughters, Serenus Lovell. Now, we're all through with the East End and the West End. Let's back, this is right across the street. This is now the location of Citizens Bank. This is the James Newton Lovell home, now location of Citizens Bank. The first library was started in this house. Oh, a number of years ago, some fellas moved the house. It's now on Lovell Road on the left-hand side, just beyond the back entrance to Citizens Bank. The house is still standing. That's where the first library was started, in that house in the 1878, I think. That was one of the Lovells, Mr. Lovell, that owned the home. He kept many detailed records, I guess like I do, of Osterville. And that was his wife, Mrs. Lovell. Now we're going to go to Bay Street. You know what Bay Street is, up by the flagpole. This home was situated on Bay Street, approximately where the parking lot is behind the Alger. There's a big building there, Alger Building, I think it's called, that faces Parker Road. Right behind that, there's that parking lot. That's where that house used to be. I used to take papers there. Charlie Kalis, who ran a country store, he lived there. The house was torn down 50, 60 years ago. It was known as the James Card House. This is the Oliver Hinckley house. And shamefully, that's been torn down. It was at the end of Bay Street, where all those homes on the left, big homes, have been built. It's the old Oliver Hinckley home. He was a noted shipbuilder here in Osterville. He was also the first recipient of the Blount cane. And that's old Mr. Hinckley right there. And after the Hinckley family moved out of the home, the Dannel family, that's where you get the Dannel block uptown from that name. The Dannel family moved into that home. And they were, the old Mr. Dannel worked for Mr. Garrison. He was a famous abolitionist years ago. This is Mr. Bacon, Alexander Bacon, another fellow that went to sea. His home was taken down several years ago, another shame. It was the first house on the right on Parker Road. A new house has been built there. There's the old Alex Bacon house. And just to the left of that would be the present Alger Building. And again, this house was taken down, I think, last year. Now, this is a very interesting photograph. If you go down to the intersection of Parker Road and West Bay Road, now you head towards Oyster Harbors, towards the boatyard. You go past where the golf course is. There's the second green on the right, and the third tee on the left. The second is the green, and on the right is the second tee. Well, right beyond there, long before you get to Eel River Road, there's a dirt driveway that goes in right past the second 8th T. That house is still there. You can't see it. The garage faces West Bay Road. Now, what I want to point out in this particular photograph is that little building there on the left. This little building right there. I'll tell you something about that. Well, we're getting close to the end. I don't know what time it is, but. Okay, the house at this time was owned by Mr. Crocker. And he had a son, Willie O. Crocker, William, that I didn't know him, but he was an invalid. And he ran a little store there, a little grocery store. It's sort of a out of the place area in Osterville, even back, let's say in 1910, to have a grocery store. But in that area, but I suppose because he was an invalid, he couldn't get himself uptown. Now, years ago, that little building was moved. Today it is located at the corner of Main Street and Tower Hill Road. It's been added on to. Walter Fuller ran an insurance business out of there. So you go along Main Street, you come to Cal Riddell, the gas station Riddell, then a place that serves soft cream ice cream. That's the original building. I think it's unoccupied. Someone recently took a weed whacker in there and knocked down all the weeds. And then right past that little store down there is where Tower Hill starts. And then comes the parking lot for the restaurant Wimpy's. But that's that little building. It was moved years ago. Let's see. Now we're going to get into some interesting pictures. We haven't got too many to go, so be patient. My voice is running out of gas. We have a gentleman and his wife here this morning. Now, I wish he had got a hold of me years ago, or his father had, but that's just the way it is. I've met with him and his dear wife several times, and this fella here with the hip boots is Worthington Crosby. And it was his mother who got into spiritualism. And when this fellow's father died, his mother so-called communicated with her deceased husband. I can't believe that, but they did. And she told him the measurements of the boat. Well, that's Worthington Crosby, and that's his son. He had two sons, Charles and Daniel. Now, Charles Crosby, the son, their descendants are long gone. Daniel Crosby's descendants are still alive. And I was hoping one of them would come here today. She lives right over here where I live. But maybe she didn't know of the program. But I want to read you something. In 1844, Worthington Crosby married Laura Bassett of Hyannis. Now, a Mr. A.B. Crocker, ever who he was, of Hyannis, was invited to the wedding. Now, he records this years later. Years later, Mr. Crocker, a boy of 15, at the time of the wedding, recalls the wedding. We had a great time, he said. The floor in the kitchen was sanded and dancing was kept up until the evening. They had a violin for music. In 1894, Mrs. Crosby, this gentleman here, While starting the kitchen wood stove, her clothes caught on fire, and the end result was tragic. Max Crosby told me his father was going to work and heard the screaming and yelling because he lived next door, but nothing could be done. His wife burnt to death. That's in 1894. Sort of a tragedy, but can you imagine doing the waltz or the jitterbug with them hip boots on? So he was quite an interesting man, so I hear. Now there he is in his old age in his shop, Worthington Crosby. Now this is a very common picture. That's him with the beard in front with a crew. Now the only one I knew in this picture, or the only two I knew, was this man on the end. He lived to be almost 100. That was Delton Hall's father, Charlie Hall. And then I knew H. Manley Crosby. That guy with the necktie. Some of you might have known H. Manley Crosby if you're interested in the boatyard. But that's the old crew down at the shop. Now, this picture here, I just found with this gentleman. He's right here. This is the old Wilton Crosby house. If you go down West Bay Road, you go past Eel River Road, you turn right into, I think it's called Crosby Circle, or and then Bridge Street starts. But right there as you turn to go into Crosby Circle, this house is on the right. And that's old Wilton Crosby. You can see the old wagon and the barn. And years ago, a couple lived there by the name of Mr. and Mrs. Ernest Smith. It now belongs to one of the Canzano families. But this is a side view of it. Once again, come down West Bay Road, go past Manor Way, turn right. That house is right there, and it's still there. Now, this is the boatyard. This is a very common photograph. This is the earliest known picture of the boatyard, taken in 1880s. And the big building there, parts of that are still around, but the other places are gone. That house on the, which is now part of the golf course, sets over on Bay Street. That's the boatyard. Okay, this is what the boatyard looks like now. The house that the lady got burnt to death in would be, it's all been added on to, would be the house in the left-hand corner. This house here would be Manley Crosby's house. That's still there. And that's another picture of the boatyard. And as Amy said, I'm working on a project. I got so many pictures of the boatyard, I just couldn't incorporate them into this talk. That's H. Manley Crosby down at the boatyard years ago. Now, this is going to be an interesting picture here. There's the, if you go up, there's the bridge. There's the bridge to Oyster Harbors. Those two houses are still there. You can see them. You can tell I'm getting old. This house is still, those two houses are still there. That house is gone, but that's the bridge. It's an old, made out of wood. It's a wooden bridge from that photograph. was taken. But that's the boatyard years ago. Now, here's a wedding. His grandson is here with his wife. Today, I'm not gonna make him stand up, but he knows who he is. He had many, many photographs. He's the fellow that's got his this is his grandfather. This is Wilton Crosby. There's a very common, there was an old Wilton Crosby that I showed you moments ago, but this is another Wilton, same family. And then he had a son, Wilton, that I knew, and his son is here with us today, and he's made available some of these old photographs. But as I said, I can't, it's gonna take one program to show everything that this Mr. Crosby had. The only reason I'm showing this picture is years ago, right beyond this, behind this is the Crosby house. Was known as Osterville Manor. That's where Manor Way is. They all had their own, that's a water tower. If you ran a shop or a business, you had to have your own water supply. That's before town water ran down there. That's the old Crosby house. And it was right there where Manor Way is. If you like to play golf, if you hit a ball off the third tee, right beyond the green was the Crosby house. That used to be a house, but it was added on to many, many, many times. My mother years ago, when she was a teenager, she worked there at the Crosby house. And that's where she met Chester Crosby Sr.'s wife. She worked there. There's another picture of the Crosby house. I was torn down, I forgot when, 1960s, 70s, sometime in that time frame. Now, I wish I'd had this picture for the last publication that I did. This is a wonderful picture of one of the last remaining old Osterville names. The name Crosby, I don't know, all the Lovels, Scudders, Parkers, those names are gone. Now, they might be heirs around, but the last name is gone. That's H. Manley Crosby. This might be their 50th or 60th wedding anniversary. That's Malcolm or Max, Carol. These were both World War I guys. Their sister, Alma, and Wilton, and H. Manley Jr. And the one where the green line is across, that would be the fellow that's here today. That would be his grandfather. Now, here's the whole Crosby family. Now, I knew a lot of these characters. Not a night. The only one living of the grandchildren is this fellow right here. He's Malcolm Crosby. You might see him around the barber shop. He's still alive. He's 80-something. Then these two great-grandchildren are alive. I don't know them, but the only grandchild that's still alive is this one. It's a lovely picture of a family. I wish I had it in one of my books. We're almost done. Now, we'll go back to World War I when I started the program. This is Max. Now, I have other pictures of him, but he was one of the few of the Osterville boys that went to the front lines during World War I. He participated with the Yankee Division. in World War I and saw a tremendous amount of combat. He's better known in the village as Max. And I've got him recorded on tape recorded. A very interesting fellow to talk to. Now, the last two pictures. What time is it? Ah, that's good. Now here's downtown Osterville. Now, I think these pictures were taken right after World War II. The reason I say that, the way the cars are parked, now it's all parallel parking. This is the Daniel block. This is Wiano Avenue. My uncle's little circle is right there. Church is right there. Way down there would be where the gas station is. And it's a snow scene. This is the house that's on Bay Street now. The house there before that burnt down. This house is where the Nightingales lived. It was moved from here over to this street here. Still standing, but different location. And then the library, the house way up there with the white siding is where the library is, this particular library. So I think that picture was taken right after World War II, because I can remember that. I used to have a paper out and go all around that area. There's another picture. This is Wiano Avenue. This is West Bay Road, Veterans Hall, Main Street, Tower Hill Road. Gotta be around here. That's where all the condominiums are up in that area. But that shows the center of Osterville, I think, right after World War II. Now, as Amy said, sometime in the future, we're going to have a program on the Crosby family. As I said, I couldn't incorporate it to Mr. Crosby that's here today. He brought over too much. And I'm running out of gas right now to talk. So Amy and I are going to go over our next program, and if Lord willing, in the months to come, we will have other stuff. So I got lots of stuff to show you. So thank you all for coming.